the silence that shook Milwaukee. Giannis Antetokounmpo did not just speak, he sent a warning shot through the entire NBA. For months, the league whispered his name like a storm was coming. New York, Miami, Golden State, Los Angeles. Every franchise with a dream started imagining what life would look like if the Greek Freak finally walked away from Milwaukee. But then Giannis broke his silence, and what he said was bigger than basketball, bigger than trade rumors, bigger than one disappointing season, because hidden underneath his words was the truth every superstar fears. You can win MVPs, you can bring a city, a championship, you can become the face of a franchise, the heartbeat of an entire fan base, the man whose jersey hangs on every kid's wall. But at the end of the day, in the business of the NBA, even a legend can still feel like he does not fully control his own future. That is why one sentence hit harder than anything else Giannis said. I am an employee, not a king, not an owner, not the final decision maker. An employee. Coming from any other player, that might sound normal. But coming from Giannis Antetokounmpo, it felt like the walls of Milwaukee were shaking. This is the same man who turned the Bucks from a small market team into a global basketball brand. The same man who stayed when others would have run. The same man who delivered a championship to Milwaukee and made the city believe impossible things could still happen. And now, after injuries, losses, locker room tension, trade speculation, and a season that left the franchise looking broken, Giannis is standing at the center of the storm. He says he never demanded a trade. He says his heart is still connected to Milwaukee. He says deep down, he wants to finish his career as a Buck. But the deeper question is this. Does Milwaukee still have the power, the discipline, and the vision to keep a player like Giannis believing? Because loyalty only survives when trust survives. And right now, that trust looks fragile. Before we go deeper into Giannis's past, the Bucks collapse, and the shocking reason this story is not really about money or championships. Tell me where you are watching from. If you believe Giannis should stay loyal to Milwaukee, comment number 1. If you believe it is time for him to leave and chase a new chapter, comment number 2. And if you want more NBA stories that reveal what really happens behind the scenes, subscribe to the channel right now, because this story is only getting started. The sentence that changed everything. I am an employee. Giannis Antetokounmpo did not say it with rage. He did not demand a trade. He did not attack Milwaukee. But that one sentence revealed the truth behind the entire situation. For years, the Bucks built their identity around Giannis. He gave the city hope, loyalty, global attention, and in 2021, the championship Milwaukee had waited decades to feel again. To the fans, he was more than a player. He was the face of the franchise. But the NBA is still a business. Giannis can carry the team, sell the jerseys, fill the arena, and make Milwaukee relevant around the world. But he does not own the team. He does not control every roster move. He does not control every medical decision, every trade call, or every front office mistake. That is why his words felt so heavy. He can love Milwaukee and still question the organization. He can respect the fans and still doubt whether the Bucks can build another championship team around him. He can want to stay forever and still wonder if staying means wasting the final years of his prime. That is the trap Giannis is in now. If he leaves, people may call him disloyal. If he stays and Milwaukee keeps falling apart, people may say he wasted his greatness. If he speaks honestly, the rumors explode. If he stays silent, the media writes the story for him. And that is why this is not just about a trade rumor. It is about trust. Giannis has already given Milwaukee everything. His youth, his loyalty, his body, his championship moment, and his name. But now the real question is whether Milwaukee can still give him a real path back to the top. Because loyalty only survives when the future still feels real. Giannis may still love Milwaukee, but love alone cannot fix a broken roster. Love cannot erase bad decisions. Love cannot guarantee another title. And that is the most painful part of this story. Giannis does not sound like a man who hates the Bucks. He sounds like a man who may still love them, while slowly realizing love may not be enough. The boy without a country, before Giannis Antetokounmpo became the Greek Freak, before the MVP trophies, before the championship parade, before the world saw him as one of the most powerful athletes alive, he was just a kid trying to survive in a place that did not fully accept him. That is the part of his story people forget. Giannis was not born into comfort. He was not raised inside a basketball machine built to create stars. He did not grow up with private trainers, elite camps, and cameras following his every move. He grew up in Greece, the son of Nigerian immigrants, in a family fighting every single day just to stay afloat. His parents, Charles and Veronica, left Nigeria looking for a better life. But in Greece, life did not suddenly become easy. Because of their immigration status, steady work was hard to find. Without steady work, stability was almost impossible. And without legal security, the family lived with a fear most children should never have to understand. Giannis grew up knowing that at any moment, everything could fall apart. There were small apartments, evictions, uncertainty, days when food was not guaranteed, nights when fear felt louder than sleep. He and his brothers helped their family by selling things on the street, watches, hats, whatever they could move, not because it was a lesson in business, but because the family needed to survive. And then there was the identity problem. For years, Giannis did not truly belong anywhere on paper. He was born in Greece, but he was not immediately recognized as Greek. He had Nigerian roots, but his life was in Athens. He was a child with talent, dreams, and hunger, but without the documents most people take for granted. Imagine being good enough to chase the NBA, but not even being sure if you can board a plane. That is what makes Giannis different. His rise was not just about basketball skill, it was about fighting through a world that kept reminding him he was an outsider. Every time he stepped on a court, he was not only playing for points, he was playing for his family's dignity. He was playing for a name people struggled to pronounce. He was playing for every kid who had ever been told they did not belong. That is why loyalty means something deeper to Giannis. When a person grows up with nothing stable, stability becomes sacred. Family becomes sacred. Trust becomes sacred. The people who stand with you when you have nothing are never forgotten. And the people who use you after you become valuable are never seen the same way again. So when Giannis talks about money, betrayal, loyalty, and protecting his circle, he is not speaking like a spoiled superstar. He is speaking like someone who remembers what it felt like to have no safety net. The NBA gave him fame. Milwaukee gave him a platform. Basketball gave him a way out. But his childhood gave him something even stronger. It gave him fear, it gave him hunger, it gave him discipline, and it gave him a deep understanding that success can disappear quickly if you trust the wrong people, ignore the wrong signs, or let someone else control your future. That is why the current Bucks drama cuts so deep. Because for Giannis, this is not just about whether a roster is good enough. It is not just about wins, losses, contracts, or headlines. It is about something he has been fighting for since he was a boy in Greece with no papers, no power, and no guarantee tomorrow would be better. Control. Giannis spent his whole life trying to earn control over his own destiny. Now, as one of the greatest players in the world, he is realizing the NBA can still make even a superstar feel powerless, and that is what makes his story so emotional. The boy who once had no country became the face of a city, but now, the face of that city has to ask himself one painful question. Does the place he helped save still know how to protect him? From unknown kid to the Greek freak. When Giannis Antetokounmpo entered the NBA conversation, he was not viewed as a future legend. He was viewed as a risk, a skinny teenager from Greece, raw, unknown, unfinished. He did not come from a famous American college. He did not have the perfect superstar image. Scouts saw the length, the movement, the hunger, but nobody knew if it would actually turn into greatness. For Giannis, basketball was never just a dream. It was a way to save his family. Every practice mattered, every workout mattered, every chance mattered. He was not chasing fame first, he was chasing stability, security, and a future that once felt impossible. Milwaukee took the gamble. The Bucks did not draft a finished superstar. They drafted possibility. They drafted a young man with a painful past, a powerful work ethic, and a quiet fire that could not be measured at the draft combine. Then the transformation began. Season by season, Giannis changed. His body grew stronger. His confidence exploded. His drives became more violent. His steps became longer. The kid who once looked uncertain began attacking the rim like the entire court belonged to him, and suddenly, the mystery became a nightmare for the rest of the league. Defenders could not stay in front of him. Coaches could not find easy answers. Every year, Giannis returned with more strength, more control, and more belief. That is how an unknown prospect became the Greek freak. But behind the highlights was still the same kid who remembered hunger, fear, and instability. That memory became his fuel. Milwaukee became the place where that fuel turned into greatness. For a while, it felt perfect. Milwaukee needed a hero. Giannis needed a home. Together, they became something bigger than anyone expected. But becoming great was only the first test. The real test was what Milwaukee would do after Giannis became great. Would the Bucks keep building with urgency? Would they protect his prime? Would they match his hunger with smart decision? Because once you have a generational player, you do not just celebrate him. You become responsible for him. And that responsibility can create a dynasty or slowly break a relationship. The championship that was supposed to change everything. For one unforgettable moment, it looked like the Giannis story had reached its perfect ending. The kid who once had no real documents, no security, and no guarantee of tomorrow had become the king of basketball. In 2021, Giannis Antetokounmpo did what many people said could not be done. He stayed in a small market. He trusted Milwaukee. He carried the Bucks through pressure, pain, doubt, and expectation. And then he delivered the championship. That title was not just another banner. It was a statement. It told the entire NBA that loyalty could still win. It told small market teams they did not always have to lose their stars. It told every young player watching that greatness did not have to run toward the brightest lights to become legendary. Giannis did not just win, he changed the meaning of winning because his championship felt personal. It felt earned. It felt like the reward for every hungry night, every street corner in Greece, every moment of doubt, every person who looked at him and saw a project instead of a future MVP. When he reached the mountaintop, Milwaukee celebrated like the city had been holding its breath for 50 years. Fans packed the streets. The Bucks were no longer an afterthought. Giannis was no longer just a superstar. He was a symbol of patience, a symbol of loyalty, a symbol of belief. But that is where the danger began. Because championships can hide problems. Winning can make people ignore warning signs. A parade can make a franchise believe the hardest work is already finished, when the truth is, the hardest work begins after you win. That is what happened to Milwaukee. After the title, the Bucks still had Giannis, they still had the banner, they still had the respect of the league, but slowly, the pressure changed. Every season after 2021 became a question: can they do it again? Can they keep him healthy? Can they build the right roster? Can they adjust before the league adjusts to them? And the answers became less clear. Injuries started stealing time. Coaching decisions became harder to defend. The roster began to age, shift, and lose balance. Moves that were supposed to extend the championship window instead created new pressure. The team still had greatness at the center, but the structure around that greatness began to look weaker. That is the cruel part of the NBA. A superstar can be great and still not be enough. Giannis could dominate. He could attack the rim, defend, rebound, lead, and carry nights that should have been lost. But one player cannot fix every problem forever. One player cannot cover every weak spot, erase every bad decision, and carry every season on his body without a cost. And Giannis paid that cost. Every hard fall, every injury scare, every playoff disappointment, every season that ended too soon made the same question louder. Is Milwaukee still giving him enough? That question is painful because Giannis never wanted to be seen as someone chasing an easier road. His entire image was built on staying, fighting, and finishing what he started. But when a franchise has a player like him, loyalty cannot be one-sided. The player must sacrifice, but the organization must deliver. The player must believe, but the front office must prove. The player must stay committed, but the team must keep showing him that his prime is not being wasted. That is why the years after the championship became so important. They were supposed to become the beginning of a dynasty. Instead, they became the beginning of doubt. And once doubt enters a superstar's mind, everything changes. The same city that once felt like home can start feeling like a question. The same jersey that once meant loyalty can start feeling like pressure. The same organization that once felt trusted can start feeling uncertain. Giannis gave Milwaukee the kind of moment most franchises spend generations chasing. But the tragedy is this: winning a championship did not end the story. It only raised the stakes. The cracks Milwaukee could not hide. After the 2021 championship, Milwaukee was supposed to stay dangerous. They had Giannis Antetokounmpo in his prime. They had belief. They had a city behind them. But in the NBA, yesterday's championship cannot protect you from tomorrow's collapse. Slowly, the cracks started showing. At first, every problem had an excuse. A tough matchup, a bad injury, a coaching mistake, a roster issue. But over time, the excuses became a pattern. The Bucks kept asking Giannis to solve everything. When the offense stalled, give it to Giannis. When the defense broke, rely on Giannis. When energy disappeared, wait for Giannis to create it. When the season slipped away, hope he could drag the team back. That can work for a while, but it cannot work forever because carrying a franchise does not only punish the body, it wears down trust. It makes a superstar wonder if everyone around him is moving with the same urgency. And Milwaukee began to look uncertain. The roster felt less balanced. The coaching decisions raised more questions. The team identity became blurry. The culture that once looked strong started to feel loose. That is why the word accountability became so important. Accountability means standard. It means stars and role players follow the same rules. It means preparation matters. Being on time matters. Details matter, because talent without standards becomes fragile, and Milwaukee looked fragile. The most dangerous part was not just losing games. It was looking like a team caught between the memory of a championship and the reality of a decline. Giannis saw it. He knows the difference between struggle that builds a team and dysfunction that breaks one. He knows when a locker room has hunger and when it is running on old memories. That is why Milwaukee's biggest challenge was no longer convincing fan. It was convincing Giannis, convincing him there was still a plan, convincing him his prime was still protected, convincing him the Bucks could build something worthy of his loyalty. Because once a superstar starts doubting, every mistake gets louder. Every bad loss feels heavier. Every strange roster move becomes evidence. Every report adds pressure. That is how a relationship changes. Not all at once. Slowly, a little frustration here, a little mistrust there, until the franchise that once felt like family begins to feel like a business decision. Giannis stayed. He believed. He proved loyalty could win, but loyalty cannot become an excuse for complacency. If Milwaukee wants him to keep believing, they cannot just point to the past. They have to prove there is still a future, because the past gave Milwaukee its championship, but only the future can keep Giannis. The media war around Giannis. When Milwaukee started falling apart, the whispers became louder. At first, it was only rumors. A few reports, a few questions, a few teams quietly watching the situation. But every Bucks loss made the same question come back stronger. Is Giannis Antetokounmpo finally close to leaving? New York was mentioned. Other contenders were watching. The NBA media machine started circling Milwaukee like something big was about to happen. But Giannis did not act like a man quietly planning his exit. He pushed back. When reports linked him to the Knicks, he questioned them. He made it clear he was still representing Milwaukee. He refused to give reporters the dramatic quote they wanted. But in the NBA, denial does not always kill a rumor. Sometimes it makes people look even closer. The more Giannis denied wanting out, the more people wondered what was happening behind closed doors. The more the Bucks defended the relationship, the more fragile it looked. And when Doc Rivers publicly challenged the reporting, the situation stopped looking like simple trade talk. It became a battle for control of the story. That is the power of NBA media. One headline can shake a fan base. One insider report can pressure a locker room. One update can make every coach, player, and executive answer questions they wanted to avoid. And Milwaukee was already vulnerable. The team had injuries, losses, frustration, and doubts about the future. So every rumor hit harder. Every quote sounded suspicious. Every denial felt like damage control. For Giannis, this was dangerous. Publicly, he wanted to protect his loyalty. Privately, he needed answers. He could not let the media write his future. But he also could not pretend Milwaukee had no problem. That is why this media war mattered. It showed the relationship had entered a dangerous stage, the stage where everyone starts protecting themselves. The team protects its image. The player protects his reputation. The coach protects the locker room. The media protects its reporting, and the fans are left wondering who is telling the full truth. Even when no trade happened, the story did not disappear. The league now knew there was uncertainty. The fans knew there was tension. The Bucks knew they had to prove themselves. And Giannis knew every move he made would be watched like evidence. If he smiled, people would analyze it. If he looked frustrated, people would turn it into a headline. If he stayed quiet, people would assume the worst. That is the exhausting part of superstardom. Giannis built his name on loyalty and humility. But once the trade machine starts, even he cannot fully control the story. And maybe that is what bothered him most. Not just that people were discussing his future, but that the conversation was moving faster than his own voice. Once again, other people were trying to define where Giannis belonged. And once again, he had to fight to keep his story in his own hand. The money lesson Giannis wants every athlete to hear. Behind the trade rumors and media noise, Giannis Antetokounmpo was warning athletes about something even more dangerous than losing games: money. To fans, NBA money looks like freedom. Big contracts, endorsements, luxury homes, private flights, and a life that seems impossible to lose. But Giannis knows the truth. Money can disappear. Fame attracts people who do not always love the person. Sometimes they love the access. They love the lifestyle. They love what the athlete can provide. And once a young player becomes rich, the people around him can become harder to read. That is why Giannis's message matters. Rich is what people see. Wealth is what people do not see. A player can look successful online and still be financially unsafe. He can buy expensive things and still have no real control. He can trust the wrong people, sign the wrong papers, and realize too late that the money he thought would last forever is almost gone. Giannis came from nothing, so he treats wealth with caution. He remembers what it felt like when every dollar mattered. That is why he believes in structure, professionals, and checks and balances. He does not want everyone around his finances connected to each other. He wants separation. He wants protection, because when too many people control the same information, the athlete can become the last person to know the truth. And that is how betrayal begins. Not always with one dramatic moment. Sometimes it starts with blind trust, a signature, a casual promise, someone saying, "Don't worry, I got you." A friend who becomes too comfortable, a professional who stops being questioned. Giannis is not telling athletes to become cold. He is telling them to become wise. You can love people and still need boundaries. You can be generous and still be careful. You can remember where you came from and still protect where you are going. That lesson connects directly to his life in Milwaukee, because whether it is money, family, business, or basketball, Giannis keeps facing the same question. Who can he really trust? Can he trust the people around his finances? Can he trust the organization around his career? Can he trust that loyalty will not be used against him? That is why this story is bigger than a normal NBA drama. Giannis is not just protecting another contract, he is protecting everything he built from nothing. He does not fear hard work. He does not fear pressure. He does not fear expectations. What he fears is giving his trust to the wrong people. And after everything he has survived, that may be the one mistake he refuses to make again. The pain behind the Greek Freak, behind the power, the trophies, and the nickname, Giannis Antetokounmpo is still a man shaped by pain. Fans see the dunks, the blocks, the MVP awards, the championship ring, and the smile. But Giannis has never been just a basketball story. He is a family story. Everything he became started with the people who carried him before the world knew his name. His parents sacrificed for him. His brothers struggled with him. His family was not separate from his career. His family was the reason the career mattered. That is why losing his father, Charles, in 2017 changed him so deeply. Giannis was not just losing a parent. He was losing one of the people who understood the whole journey. The hunger before the money, the fear before the fame, the small apartments before the arenas. That kind of pain does not disappear because you are rich. It does not disappear because you are famous. And for Giannis, the grief was so heavy that he nearly walked away from basketball. That is the human truth behind the superstar image. Giannis does not play like a man chasing only stats. He plays like a man carrying memories. Every time he steps on the floor, there is family, sacrifice, grief, gratitude, and the pressure to honor the people who gave everything for him. That is also why his foundation mattered. Giannis wants to be remembered for more than basketball. He wants to help immigrants, poor families, and people who need food, clothes, legal help, medical care, and support. Because he remembers what it felt like to be unseen. Milwaukee, Greece, Nigeria, and Africa are all part of his identity. Each place carries a piece of the man he became, and that makes his future more complicated. For some players, a trade decision is about money, lifestyle, or winning. For Giannis, it is about meaning. If he stays in Milwaukee, he protects the story of loyalty. If he leaves, he protects the remaining years of his prime. If he forces change, he protects his right to demand excellence. None of those choices are easy because Giannis cares deeply. He cares about the fans, the city, his family name, his community, and the kids watching him. But caring deeply can make decisions more painful. Sometimes, the place you love can no longer give you what you need. Sometimes, loyalty becomes heavy when the future is unclear. That is the emotional center of Giannis' story. He is not just chasing another title. He is trying to honor his father, protect his family, serve his community, and compete at the highest level while he still can. Giannis is standing between memory and ambition, between loyalty and survival, between the city that made him a champion and the future that may demand something different. Whatever he chooses next, one thing is clear. The Greek Freak is not running from pressure. He is carrying the weight of everything that made him, the choice that defines Giannis' legacy. Now, Giannis Antetokounmpo faces the decision that could define the rest of his career. Not because he has nothing left to prove, but because he has already proved so much. He proved a kid from poverty could become an MVP. He proved a small market superstar could win without running to the biggest spotlight. He proved Milwaukee could matter again. He proved loyalty could still win in the NBA. But now the question is different. What happens when loyalty has already given everything it can give? If Giannis stays, the Bucks cannot ask him to believe only because of the past. The 2021 championship will always matter, but memories cannot protect his prime. Milwaukee must prove there is still a plan, a standard, and a real path back to contention. If Giannis leaves, it will not erase what he built. It will not erase the parade, the love, the loyalty, or the fans who became Bucks fans because of him. But it would change the ending. It would show that even the strongest bond can break when the future becomes unclear. And if Giannis forces change, maybe that is the most honest path. Not running, not surrendering, but demanding excellence from the same organization that demands loyalty from him, because loyalty should never be one-sided. A player can give his body, his prime, and his heart to a city, but the franchise must give something back. Smart decisions, clear standards, real support, and trust. That is the lesson. Greatness needs help. Talent needs structure. Loyalty needs proof. Giannis' story is bigger than basketball. It is about protecting your future without forgetting your past. It is about loving where you came from while still having the courage to demand better. That is why his decision feels so powerful. Wherever Giannis plays next, he will bring more than points, rebounds, defense, and dominance. He will bring a story. The story of a boy who once had no security and no guarantee of tomorrow. The story of a family that refused to break. The story of a city that became home. The story of a champion who learned that money, fame, and power mean nothing if you lose control of your future. So whether Giannis stays in Milwaukee, leaves for a new chapter, or pushes the Bucks to rebuild around a higher standard, the message is clear. Do not use loyalty as a chain. Use it as a promise. A promise to honor the people who believed in you. A promise to protect what you built. A promise to grow with honesty, respect, and courage. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from right now? Comment your city, your state, or your country below. Press 1 if you think Giannis should stay in Milwaukee. Press 2 if you think he should leave and protect the rest of his prime. Press 3 if you think the Bucks must rebuild everything around him before it is too late. And if you want more NBA stories that go deeper than highlights and rumors, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with another basketball fan. Because the next chapter of Giannis Antetokounmpo's career may not just change Milwaukee, it may change the entire NBA.